Interview with the Director of the Third European Department of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, ON. Tyapkin, by RIA Novosti, August 19, 2024. Question: The Russian Prosecutor General's office has sent additional requests to several countries, including Germany, regarding the terrorist attacks on the Nord Stream pipelines, but the German side has refused to comment on the investigation's progress. Is Moscow planning to appeal to any higher international judicial bodies in this case? Answer: all the countries, except Germany, to which the Russian law enforcement agencies sent requests regarding the terrorist attacks on the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines, have already closed their national investigations into this crime. The perpetrators and those who ordered it have not been identified. This outcome did not come as a surprise to us. Meanwhile, the West has blocked the conduct of an international investigation. The German authorities have issued a search warrant for one of the alleged perpetrators of the terrorist attacks in the Baltic Sea, who are Ukrainian citizens. Judging by the fact that the German media have long and methodically promoted the idea that these individuals are not connected to any state, it is likely that the German investigation will also be closed without identifying the true masterminds behind the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. Essentially, Germany is going to sweep it under the rug, as absurd as that sounds, considering that Germany is one of the main victims in this story. Russia does not intend to accept this state of affairs. We have raised the issue of Germany and other affected countries fulfilling their obligations under the UN anti-terrorism conventions. We have officially lodged the relevant claims on a bilateral basis, including with Berlin. We are seeking negotiations in accordance with existing international regulations. Our next steps will depend on the West's response. Question: is Moscow engaged in diplomatic negotiations with Berlin regarding the return of the repaired turbine for Nord Stream? Has anyone from the Russian side requested its return to Russia? Answer: this issue is not currently being discussed at the diplomatic level. Overall, the timeline of events concerning the turbine is quite remarkable. Initially, Canada, where the turbine necessary for the normal functioning of Nord Stream was sent for repairs, refused to return it, citing the West's unilateral sanctions against Russia's energy industry. Then, Berlin eventually persuaded Ottawa to transfer the turbine as an exception to the German side, evidently due to Germany's interest in restoring gas supplies from our country in the volumes needed for its energy-intensive industry. In August 2022, the German leadership announced its willingness in principle to return the turbine to Russia, and there seemed to be a hypothetical possibility of resolving the issue, provided Gazprom received legal guarantees from the European Union that would eliminate the sanction risks associated with repairs in Western countries and the transportation of such equipment. But literally a month later, in September of that same year, the terrorist attacks were carried out, disabling the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. It is clear that someone was very keen to prevent the resumption of their regular operation. As a result, Germany completely lost its gas supplies via the Trans-Baltic route, and now, for a potential restart, not only one or several turbines and significant repair and restoration work are needed, but above all, political will, which is lacking in Berlin, to the detriment of German citizens and industry. Question: members of the Berlin Parliament from the opposition party CDU have proposed confiscating and auctioning off Russian real estate in Berlin, with the proceeds to be sent to aid Ukraine. How feasible is this idea? Is the Russian embassy communicating with the German authorities on this issue? Is Moscow considering any actions in the event of such confiscation? Answer: given the legal nihilism that has taken hold in the West in recent years toward the property of countries it disfavors, nothing can be completely ruled out. The utterly illegal freezing of Russian state and private assets, along with the political discussions about possibly seizing them, which is essentially theft, is a prime example of this. As for Russian real estate in Germany, we are closely monitoring the situation and will respond immediately to any attempts to infringe upon the sovereign property of our country. The message we are sending to the German authorities is very clear: any illegal actions will inevitably be met with an appropriate response regarding German property in Russia. Question: the official representative of the German Foreign Ministry, S. Fischer, advised German journalists to reconsider their stay in Russia and consider leaving. Has the Russian Foreign Ministry received any notifications from German journalists working in Moscow about their intention to leave the country? Or, conversely, have there been more requests for journalist accreditation in our country? Answer: first of all, it's important to understand the context of the statement mentioned. The German authorities have been systematically restricting the activities of Russian media in Germany for a long time. In recent months, our journalists have been forced out of the country under various administrative and legal pretexts. We have repeatedly warned the German Foreign Ministry, including publicly, that if this harmful practice continues, we will be compelled to take reciprocal measures against German media representatives in Russia. Incidentally, there are significantly more of them in our country than there are Russian correspondents in Germany. There are no artificial barriers to the professional activities of German journalists here. On the contrary, if they encounter any issues, the relevant department of the Russian Foreign Ministry assists them in resolving them. It is simply impossible to imagine that our journalists would receive similar assistance from the German Foreign Ministry. It is clear that Berlin is currently more interested in clearing its information space of Russian media than in maintaining normal working conditions for German media in Russia. Hence the attempt to shift the blame for the accumulating problems and to turn the situation around to make it seem like Moscow is at fault, as usual. The intentions of the German authorities are quite obvious. Question: at the end of July, Moscow reported that an employee of the Czech embassy attempted to bring a potent substance into Russia in violation of Russian law. The Czech side was offered the choice of waiving immunity to allow the employee to be prosecuted, or having the individual leave the country. Has the Czech side made a decision? How will the situation be resolved? Answer: according to our information, the Czech embassy employee against whom a criminal case has been initiated in Russia for smuggling potent substances has already left the country. Question: earlier, Polish Foreign Minister R. Sikorski stated that Warsaw is considering the possibility of shooting down Russian missiles over Ukraine. How would Moscow view such a step by Warsaw if it were carried out? Are there any negotiations on this issue? Answer: if official Warsaw succumbs to such an adventurous impulse and attempts to intercept long-range weapons, lawfully used by our armed forces to neutralize military threats emanating from Ukraine against Russia, the reaction will be appropriate and quite specific. Russian diplomacy has repeatedly pointed out the risks associated with the potential direct involvement of Western states in the conflict on the side of the Kyiv regime. No negotiations are being conducted on this issue with anyone. Our position is well known to both Warsaw and NATO.